morning, everyone. Good evening, and good afternoon to viewers from all walks of life. This is Desmos, and you are welcome to the channel of truth, enlightenment, freedom, and the channel of breaking empaths free. If you are new, on this channel I talk about narcissism and narcissistic abuse. I talk about spirituality, and I talk about personal and self-development. And if any of that stuff resonates with you, I invite you guys to join us. Give us a like, share this video with your friends, and you may subscribe if you haven't already. And for those that have always been with us, you are welcome back, and I thank you for your love and support. I've got a very important subject to talk about today. Very important. I'm going to ask you guys to listen very closely. Especially I'm talking about the guys, most of you who have been the black sheeps or the chosen ones, most of you guys who have grown up in dysfunctional families. And first of all, we need to understand something. First of all, usually if you have grown up in the dysfunctional family, you might have been familiar with a specific pattern. This may be a pattern that has been happening for generations and generations in that bloodline, in that family line. And a lot of things might have been going on behind the scenes. Most of those things you were not aware of them. Of course, at an early stage in time, you weren't aware of them. So they could have been simple things like, I cannot call them simple, but there could have been like obvious things. Like, for example, there could have been in that family, at a certain age, people pass on at a certain age. So you might find that in that family, people, when they reach a certain age, individuals in those families, they reach a certain age and they pass on. It could be the age of 30, it could be the age of 40. It could even be the age of 50. But at a certain age, a specific age, those individuals pass on. They die. It could have been a position whereby in that specific family, a lot of people born are giving birth to premature children. It could have been a situation whereby in that family or in that cycle, a lot of people are getting all sorts of diseases. Sometimes even they may even be involved. A lot of individuals in that family, they end up with sicknesses such as HIV, or even sometimes many different kinds of sicknesses. So there could be cycles that have been following that generation for ages. It could even be just something simple, like there could be people in that family, members in that family, who actually end up dying while they're giving birth. And that could have happened to so many family members in so many different generations along that bloodline. Now, usually what happens in the dysfunctional family, there is somebody at the top there. Now I'm talking about the great grandfather or grandmother. Now, that person may have passed on this curse. It could be a curse. Sometimes it can be a curse. If we're talking about things like diseases, sicknesses, health issues and things like that, it could be a curse. But sometimes it just could be a pattern, a way or a cycle of way of doing things. Those people, they may have had a cycle that they have passed on to generations below you, that they have always done their things in a particular way. And usually it has been in a very dysfunctional way. It's just because that most of the times it has always been very difficult for people to figure it out. You know what I mean? But in every dysfunctional family, there is born somebody who they call a black sheep. Now, that black sheep is born in that family on purpose. The black sheep, normally they will not see that individual coming. And sometimes even where you see the reason why most of the black sheep, they really suffer too much in those families is because the black sheep, when they come into those families, they will start to become the outcast, and they are going to be the odd man out. They are going to be the ones who are not going to fit in with that cycle. Whatever cycle it has been going on in that family, it could even be something as simple as narcissism, or as complicated as narcissism, psychopathy, all these kind of things. So in the dysfunctional families, the members of those families, they have adopted a lot of things from the previous generation that they've been following, and they have continued to carry on those things to their own families, and their own families now will carry on those things to their children. Now that thing becomes something what they call a generational cycle. And the generational cycle, normally, it happens to be broken by somebody who they call the black sheep. As soon as the black sheep, any black sheep that you guys have always been seeing me in my videos, I've always been talking about the black sheep. When the black sheep is born in those families, the black sheeps, they're the ones who put the end to those patterns and to those cycles in those families. Now, because I do not have a notice board. I've got a notice board somewhere back there on my wall, but it's got different stuff. So in this video, I'm going to use a book, and I'm going to use a diagram. We are going to draw, and I'm going to make you guys understand what happens usually when the generational cycle is getting broken, what exactly happens at the top and what exactly goes on at the person at the bottom. Because you see, there is a person at the top who is the great-great-great-grandfathers or grandmothers, the grandparents who have passed on this cycle or who have passed on this curse from their generations onto the forthcoming generations. And then there's a person at the bottom. Usually, we're talking about the people who are the last kids. So it could be the last child or the last daughter or the last son or things like that. So that's the person who is holding, who is going to pass on that cycle or whatever it is pattern they have passed on from them, from the previous ancestors. And that person at the bottom now, we are going to focus on the person at the bottom, and we're also going to focus on the person at the very top of the tree. You know what I mean? So on this diagram here, I'm going to put it here so that you guys can see it. So we have that person up there. So I have A, B, C, D, and E. And then I have F. So F is the child who is at the bottom of the cycle, or at the bottom of the circle. You know what I mean? So this is the child, we're talking about the last born who is at the bottom of the cycle. And A represents the person, the great-great-grandparents who have actually passed on this, whatever it is they have passed on, patterns and curses and things like that, the things that they have kept on passing on to different generations over the years. So the person at the top, who is A, the great-great-grandparents, they will pass on that curse. Now, I've already mentioned to you guys the curse. What kind of curse am I talking about? They will pass on the curse and the cycle to B. The person on B, they will have children, and they will pass on that cycle that they have learned from the A. They will pass it on to their children, okay, who is at C. Now, those children now, they will also have children. They will have their own families, and they will born their children and everything. Now, those children now, the person at C, they are going to adopt these things, because remember, these things have been passed on from B. So they are going to pass on whatever it is they have learned from B and pass it on to the children who are going to be down at C. You know what I mean? So this thing keeps on going like that, and then like that, and then like that. Now, the person at D will also have children, like of course, like the other ones have always done. So they will also have their own children. And what is going to happen, the person at D is going to have children, but in those children, one of the children is actually going to become the black sheep. Now, usually, on a very spiritual perspective, the black sheeps, normally in those families, the black sheeps are children who are actually sent to those families. Those children, they are sent by divine. The very reason why the black sheep turned out to become the chosen one in those families, because those children, they are sent by the universe, because those children, they are supposed to come and intercept that pattern. They are supposed to come in those families, and they're supposed to intercept and to break that curse, because that curse has got to be broken by somebody from the outside. And that somebody, the reason why they call them the black sheep, because those are the only individuals who come into those families, and they never fit in the norms, they never fit in the society, they never fit in that place that they have been placed. They have always been the outcasts, and they do not fit in whatsoever. Which is the reason why most of those kids, even from the very young age, those children, they are punished for no apparent reason. They are picked up for no apparent reason. They are being bullied. They are being isolated. They are being separated from the rest of the family members, because for some reason the parents. Now I'm talking about those particular individuals who are at the parents here. Where are we? We are, yeah, the parents at D. The parents at D, they are going to notice that there is one of their children who is not fitting in. Okay, now this is the black sheep of the family. Now, of course, there are so many different children in that pattern. You know, there are so many children. There could be 6. Most of the dysfunctional families, you can find them with 5, 6, 7 children. They can even go until 10. But there's one children out here who is actually the black sheep. Okay, I hope in this diagram you guys can see it properly. And in that diagram, the black sheep, normally what happens is that the black sheep, they face a lot of challenges. The parents of those families, what they are going to notice first of all is they are going to see in one of their children, there is a children who is not fitting in. There is a children who doesn't accept the bullshit that is going on in the house. They don't do what the other family members are doing. They are doing things differently. They are reasoning differently. They are actually completely different from the other family members. And normally the parents are the top. The parents who are up here on the D, they are going to notice and they are going to pick notice of that, or they are going to have, they're going to become conscious about that child that is actually not fitting into the family. And they are going to be very, usually they are going to be intimidated by that child, because whatever it is they're going to say for the child is going to refuse. So the child may sometimes see their parents for who they are. They may sometimes be, they may not really figure out everything at the beginning, but they will see that there is something wrong in that family that actually most of the people cannot see. Most of the people around the family, even members of the family, people in the family team, they cannot actually see. And the chosen one, the person who is the black sheep in that family, they'll be able to see that pattern or a cycle that is actually doesn't seem to be normal. And usually what happens is that the black sheep, they are the very first kids who awaken. Normally the black sheep, they tend to awaken very, very, very fast. Some of them, they can awaken at an early age. Some of them, they can awaken at a later age. When the black sheep awakens in that family, the black sheep, what they will do, they will now start to mention and they will start to speak out on that dysfunction that has been going on in that family. So when the black sheep now starts to speak out on that dysfunction of what has been going on in that family, the very first thing what is going to happen within the family members, it is going to cause a very massive disruption. Now, this disruption is going to be very massive, because what will happen is that the family members, first of all, remember, the family members have been used to the program. They've been accustomed to the program that has been picked up from their parents. So normally if the dysfunction has been having the parent at the top, so that parent that has passed on that dysfunction to the other family members, when the black sheep awakens, they're going to start to blow the whistle. You know what I mean? So this is like a whistleblower. Normally the black sheep or the chosen one, they're like the whistleblowers. You know what I mean? So what they do, they start blowing the whistle. And now the other family members who have been in that team, in that dysfunction, they're going to start to become aware of it. You know what I mean? Because nobody has ever, for the last couple of years, decades of years, nobody has ever mentioned anything that has got to do with that dysfunction. But because the black sheep is the chosen one who is able to see that dysfunction for what it is. So what the black sheep will do, they're going to blow the trumpet. By that, what I mean is that, first of all, the black sheep, what they will do, they will awaken. Now, what happens when the black sheep awakens? The very first thing they do is they get out of that family unit. You know what I mean? So they get out. It could be, now, in this case, I'm talking about the family. It can be a society. It can be a community. It can be just a place that you have grown that has been accustomed to certain kind of ideas, that those ideas and those cycles have just been picked up from previous generations, and they have just been passed on to the generations to come. So, but in this family, I'm just focusing on the family. In this case, we're talking about the dysfunctional families that have picked up so many cycles from the previous generations. The black sheep, what they do when they awaken, the very first thing what they do, they jump out of the cycle. They jump out of the circle. You know what I mean? So when they jump out of the circle, because that black sheep holds a lot of power. Most of the cases, the reason why they have been bullied, they have been punished for no apparent reason and bullied and isolated from a very young age. This is because it is almost as if most of those family members, they can see those individuals, they are different from the rest, and they hold something they can't really put a finger on it, what it is, but they can figure out there's something unique about that individual. You know what I mean? Because the black sheep, they are usually very special anointed people of God. Those individuals, they're sent by the universe to come in to that cycle and interrupt that cycle, because that cycle has got to be broken. So the black sheeps, they're the chosen ones in those kind of dysfunctional families, and they're the ones who are sent to actually interrupt and break that family unit down and break that cycle, so that it cannot now carry on getting passed on to other future generations to come. So that is why I've left a gap in this page, in this place here. You see, I've put a cross here. You see this cross, because now the black sheep interrupts the cycle. And now remember, there's a future, that's a D and that's a E. So there is a future generation to come, which is E, okay? And that cycle, it was supposed to be passed on from D to E. But now the problem has come, and now because the problem has arrived, because the black sheep now has interrupted that cycle and has cut off that cycle from the middle. And now because of that, there's a lot of chaos that is going on here. You know, there's a lot of chaos that is happening in the family members team. So a lot of family members, what will happen is that now we're talking about the aftermath. Usually what is going to happen, the family members, they are going to start fighting with each other. Because remember, there is a distract. Now, most of these things, what you have to understand, guys, they are happening on a very spiritual perspective. So they are happening behind the scenes. On the physical level, you're going to see a lot of family members. They're going to start pointing fingers at each other, fighting at each other. They are not going to know, they will not know, and they will never know why are they actually starting to separate themselves from each other and fighting with each other. But this is because usually there is a cycle that is being broken in that family. The black sheep has awakened. When the black sheep awakens, they blow the trumpet. When the trumpet goes off, now that trumpet disrupts the whole family unit, starting from the very first child to the very last child. So because they are now starting to see this dysfunction for what it is, because the black sheep now, because they are aware of it, because the very first thing what happens when the black sheep awakens, they become aware of everything. They become aware. Their bulbs are turned on and they become aware of everything. And now they blow the trumpet and they start to blow the whistle. So they're whistleblowers. They start to tell everybody what is going on. So the other family members, what happens is that they start to become aware of the dysfunction, and they start to become very insecure and very, very disturbed with this. So what happens is the family members in that team, they're now going to start fight with each other. You know what I mean? So they're going to start to fight with each other. They're going to start to separate. This one is going to point the finger at the sister. The sister is going to point the finger at the brother, and the whole family is going to fall into some kind of a chaos. The parent here at D, the parent is going to be disturbed by this function. Normally the parent, what will happen with the parent, because as the children now start to fight amongst themselves and the disruption happening amongst the family, what the parent will do, the parent is going to combine these other children who are fighting against each other, and the parent is actually going to try to convince them that whatever it is they're fighting about is for nothing. It is the black sheep who is talking the nonsense. You know what I mean? So the parent is going to now make the other family members who are fighting against it, that, hey, you guys need to calm down. You need to know that everything is, whatever that person is saying, it's not the truth and this and that. So the parent is now going to start to brainwash those other family members to come on this side, and now they are all going to start to gang up on the black sheep. But remember, the black sheep, they are very strong individuals, and those individuals usually they can stand alone, so they can leave the whole dysfunction and they can separate themselves from that dysfunction, even sometimes forever. Most of the cases they have gone forever, but they will not leave without blowing the whistle. They will blow the whistle and they will make sure that the other family members in that team, they also understand what is going on. So the parent will try their best. Sometimes they have succeeded, but sometimes it usually happens that they may be able still to get some of the family members on their side. You know what I mean? So there may be some of those family members who are going to go on their side, but there will be also some other family members who are going to know that actually that guy down there, the black sheep, they have blown the whistle, they have opened their eyes, and now they can see the truth for what they are. And sometimes you will find a case whereby some of those family members, there may not be many of them, but some of them family members, they will also get out of the unit for good. So you will see a lot of family members starting to fall out from that tree. So you will see the brother will go west, the sister will go right, the other will go here, the other will go there. So the whole family, the father, the person at the top there, they might have one or two family members left with them. You know what I mean? The ones who are always going to die with them. These are like the diehards of the family. So they may decide to stay with the whole entire unit forever. You know, with the family forever. But there will be some other family members. They are going to run off the family unit and separate themselves from that unit for good. Now remember, every family member that separates themselves for good from that family unit, they are now starting their own generations, because now they have understood what was going on in their family and they are aware of it, and they do not want that thing to be passed on to the other generations to come. So what will happen is that they are going to separate themselves from that unit. They will go east, they will go north, they will go south, they will go west, and they'll all now start their own families and bring up their families according to how they want them to be. You know what I mean? Not according to what the ancestors have said they should be, but now they're going to start creating their own families according to how they want their own families to be, families of truth, families of respect, and families that are born out of the frequency of love. So what they'll do, they will now start spreading the message of love to the other families, because the ancestral patterns and generation patterns, they are only broken by love. Love is the highest frequency in the universe, and is the only frequency you can use to overcome anything. It does not matter what it is, which is one of the biggest reasons why most of the time the chosen one, who is the black sheep, they are usually punished, because they are on a very high frequency, which is the frequency of love. They are able to love. They are normally very strong empaths, and they are able to love people unconditionally. That's the only secret what the empath has, and what the black sheep has, the advantage that they have over the other family members, usually before they awaken. So what usually happens, because that person there at D, who is the dad, now I can talk about the dad or the mom, because those are the patterns. Those were the heads that were used to pass on that curse or that cycle to the other family team. What will happen? That person down there. Now, I'm talking about this person, but sometimes it can be also the grandfather. And that is the case whereby the grandfather or the grandmother, they are also still alive. So you may find that sometimes the father or the grandmother, both of them, they are alive. Now, what happens is that when that curse is being broken, that curse is going to be felt in the whole entire unit. Now we might start from the grandfather if they are alive. If they are not alive and all of them are passed on, we are going to start with the father. That pattern, when it's being broken, it is being felt on a spiritual level, because remember, this has been a pattern that has been passed on for generations, previous generations. We're talking about hundreds of years, and it has been a cycle that has been ingrained in people's DNA. You know what I mean? It has been ingrained in those individuals, their mind, very deep in their mind, and it has got to be passed on and kept on alive until the future generations to come. But now the cycle has been disrupted, and what is going to happen is that the family members separate. They all go away and decide to start their own units and to start their own cycle and to start their own patterns that they think they are supposed to be healthy and normal patterns in their own family, in their own family units. And they will now start to begin or to create their own generations and to decide and to dictate how their generations to come, they are going to look like. So the person there who is at D, who is the father or the mother, what will happen? Because on the spiritual perspective, you remember, guys, I want to make something very clear. These generational cycles, these are spiritual patterns. These are not only physical patterns that you can see. These are spiritual patterns, and everything is happening in the spiritual realm. So most of the cases, this can be diseases, HIV. This can be cancer. This can be death. Most of the cases, you can find family members, when they reach a certain age, they are dying. They can reach a certain age of 30 or 40, and then they pass on for no apparent reason. Nothing happens. You just find them, they are dead. It can be something that's been going on in the spiritual realm, and that thing has been destroying generations and generations from the previous generations, and it has been happening in that cycle. When the black sheep awakens, they blow the trumpet. When they blow the trumpet, they disrupt that cycle, because remember, in the spiritual team, they know the chosen one is the person with the light, which is the reason why most of the cases they have even tried to do many attempts on your life to destroy you and take you out of light, because they know you are the person who has got the light and you are the person who has got the power. You are the one who is going to break that cycle. But in the spiritual team, remember, these are evil forces and demonic forces. They want to carry on that pattern for generations. But the black sheep has said no. The chosen one has said no. They are coming in. They have awakened. They have started breaking that cycle, and they have caused a whole disruption in that entire unit. And from the moment that black sheep awakens, that cycle is going to disrupt and usually cause a lot of chaos. Family members will separate. Other members, few of them, they may decide to stick with the person who is at the moment at the top, who is the father or the mother. They may decide to stick with them for a while, but still it will not be comfortable for them, because they are sticking with them just because they are their parents. But behind their back of their heads, they know the truth. You know what I mean? Because the trumpet has been blown, and now everybody knows the truth. So what happened is that person at the top, who is D, the father, they start to become insecure, and they are going to hate the black sheep for the rest of their lives. Why? Because those individuals, they have blown the trumpet, and they have told the other family unit here about exactly what is going on, and they have addressed that issue, what is going on, and they have made the other family members aware of what is going on. So few of the family members, one or two of them, they may decide to stick with the father or the mother to the rest of the team, to the end of his life or her life. But the other family members who have left that unit, they will never be able to come to that family. They will just separate and go forever, because now they know what is going on, and they do not want to have the families that are going to carry on that pattern, cycle of toxicity, of evil cycle in their own families. So they separate from the unit, and they go and start their own generations in the future. Now here we have got a new E. I've made it E, because E is supposed to represent the new generation that is going to come. Because when this thing has been broken, here it has been disrupted and broken, now all these family members, they are going to start to have a new, we're talking about 3 or 4 of them, so they will all start their own families, and they're going to create a new generation, which is E. I can call it E. Let me put the E down here. Now that E represents a new generation that is born after the cycle, the generational cycle has been broken. And that is the generation that is going to experience abundance. So most of them, they're going to be born in happiness. They're going to be born in love. They're going to be born abundant, because remember, by breaking a generational cycle, not only are you breaking ancestral patterns and ancestral cycles, but you're also breaking this whole thing in the spiritual realm. And most of those cases, because it is involved and it is associated with demonic and evil energies, those energies, they have always refused those members to prosper, to develop, to become, and to live their life healthy. They have deprived them of the chance to be internally and spiritually happy, because it is a spiritual thing going on in the background. So what happens, because it has broken the family, what's going to be down here at E, that has been created by these other family members that have left, the other family members that have left the team, and even sometime when the parent dies, because normally when the cycle is being disrupted, it also breaks down that parent, the parent who is up here, because that parent, they're the ones who has been carrying that generational cycle to pass it on to the children. But now it has failed because it has been interrupted and it has been destroyed. That person now will start to face a lot of health issues. So they may start to get very serious diseases. They may start to get very serious illnesses. On the physical level, they are going to manifest as sicknesses and as diseases. But on the spiritual level, actually, they are being punished by those ancestors because they have failed to pass on that generation, or that curse, or that cycle to the other children, because the other children have disrupted the cycle, and the cycle cannot continue to the other generations to come. So the person who is here at D, they're going to experience a lot of sicknesses, a lot of diseases, a lot of all different kinds of things. Even sometimes, on worst case scenarios, they may even sometimes die. You know what I mean? And the very moment when that person dies, now I want to tell you something very clear, guys, before I close this video. The person at D, they protect that cycle for as much as they can, because they want that cycle, they want to die. The very moment that person dies without anybody waking up in that family, that cycle will now be able to be passed on to the person at E, and the cycle will keep on going on and on and on. But when the cycle has been disrupted and this person dies, the person here at D, the person, or they die, they can die due to old age, they can die due to different diseases, sicknesses, or things like that. But normally when they die, the cycle dies with them. You know what I mean? So that is when the cycle is being cancelled in that family, in that entire unit. The cycle is actually finally cancelled by that person at D's death. When the person dies at D, when they pass on, it can be old age, it can be diseases, cancer, health issues, HIV, or things like that. When they pass on, that is exactly when the cycle comes to the end, and the cycle is cancelled in the spirit realm, and it never passes on to other generations. And the other generations now can experience the happiness, the life they've always wanted to live. They can have abundant, whether it is spiritual or even sometimes financially abundant. They can live abundant lives because the pattern that has been following them for generations, it has been broken down by the person who is the black sheep. Here, we're talking about the chosen one. They have come into that family, disrupted the whole unit, broken down the cycle, and now that cycle is going to start create a very new series of breeds. The breeds here, what I've called E, their family members, nephews, and things like that, they're all now going to join up and have a whole new generation, a generation that is actually meant to experience life to its fullest, experience life in abundance of all shapes and form. So the hero in this part is called the black sheep. That person, yes, they're going to be hated. For the most part of their lives, they will be hated, they'll be punished and things like that. They will endure so much, but this is because their journeys are always the hardest, because those individuals, they are particularly meant to destroy those cycle patterns, those ancestral patterns. That is why their journey is always very hard, and the places that they placed, normally it is very, very difficult. That was why even sometimes in my videos I've said breaking generational curses is one of the hardest things you can ever imagine, because that thing, it cannot be done by anybody. It is only done by a person who has been chosen and has been assigned that mission, because that is a mission exactly on its own. And that person, exactly the black sheep, is the chosen one that is usually sent in those families by God, by the universe, whichever it is you want to call it, by God or by the universe. They come into there and they disrupt and break that cycle for good. And now the people down there, the generations what are going to follow in the future, they will never experience any of the problems that have been experienced before, because the cycles have been broken, and they are finally actually a name is put and a stop is put to that cycle exactly when that person at D. We're talking about the parents who have actually been passing on this cycle or this curse. They've been passing it on the generations. When that person passes on or they die, that is exactly when this cycle is cancelled in the spiritual realm. So this whole thing is happening when we're talking about generational curses and ancestral cycles and patterns. These things are happening in the spiritual realm. You know what I mean? These are demonic forces and evil forces, and they just decide to use a whole generation to destroy people for hundreds of years. But until that person who is the chosen one, they have come in, they have cancelled everything, and they break everything. That is when they are now going to start, all the other family members on all the other team, they're now going to start to create a new world for themselves, a world that is full of love, full of peace, and full of abundance in every shape and form. So guys, in this video, if anything makes sense, if you've seen some of these things I'm talking about, I want you to mention it in the comment section below. And as always, guys, you always know, give us a like, guys, if you like. Share this video. Remember to hit the like, the subscribe, the notification button, just so that you don't miss out anytime I upload new videos. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments. Much love and blessings, guys. There's almost signing out, and I'll catch you in my next video. Peace.